Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye nashtaprayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtike. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 4, The Atrocities of King Kamsa. Text number 31. Evam chet tarhi bhojendra. Evam chet tarhi bhojendra. Pura grama vraja adishu. Puragrama vrajadishu. Anirdashan nirdashamscha. Anirdashan nirdashamscha. Hanishyamo adya vai shishun. Hanishyamodya vai shishun. Evam chetarihi bhojendra. Puragramavrajadishu. Anirdashan nirdashamscha. Hanishyamodya vai shishun. Evam chetarihi bhojendra. Puragramavrajadishu. Anirdashan nirdashamscha. Anishyamodya vai shishun. Evam chetarihi bhojendra. Puragramavrajadishu. Anirdashan nirdashamscha. Hanishyamodya vai shishun. Evam vai tarihi bhojendra. Puragramavrajadishu. Anirdashan nirdashamscha. Hanishyamodya vai shishun. Let us give opportunity for the Matajis also. We don't have time for many devotees to chant. So one temple devotee, and from the rest of the devotees, one Prabhu's side, one Mataji's side. Okay? So Mataji, one of the Matajis can chant. Yes, please chant. Lead the chanting. Somebody began leading, no? Evam chetarhi bhojendra. Puragramavrajadishu. Anirdashan nirdashamscha. Hanishyamodya vai shishun. Evam, thus, chet, if it is so, tarhi, then, bhoja indra, O king of Bhoja, referring to Kamsa, Puragrama Vraja Adishu, in all the towns, villages, and pasturing grounds, Anirdashan, those who are less than 10 days old, nirdashancha, and those who are just over 10 days old, anishyamaha, we shall kill. Adya, beginning from today, why indeed, Shishun, all such children. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. If this is so, O King of the Bhoja dynasty, beginning today, we shall kill all the children born in all the villages, towns, and pasturing grounds within the past 10 days or slightly more. Please repeat this translation. If this is so, O King of the Bhoja dynasty, beginning today, we shall kill all the children born in all the villages, towns, and pasturing grounds within the past 10 days or slightly more. There is no purport, so I'll read the next four verses. Text 32. Kim udyamai karishyanti deva samarabhiravaha nityam udvigna manaso jagoshair dhanushastava. Translation. The demigods always fear the sound of your bowstring. They are constantly in anxiety, afraid of fighting. Therefore, what can they do by their endeavors to harm you? Text 33. Asyataste sharavrater hanyamana samantatah jijivishava utsrujya palayana parayayuhu. Translation. While being pierced by your arrows, which you discharged on all sides, some of them who were injured by the multitude of arrows, but who desired to live, fled the battlefield intent on escaping. Text 34. Kechit pranjalayo dina न्यस्तशस्त्रा दिवौकसः मुक्तकच्छ शिखा केचिद् भीता स्म इति वादिनः. Translation. Defeated and bereft of all weapons, some of the demigods gave up fighting and praised you with folded hands. And some of them, appearing before you with loosened garments and hair, said, O Lord, we are very much afraid of you. Text 35. Natvam vismrita shastrastran virathan bhayasamvritan hamsyanyasapta vimukhan bhagnachapan ayudhyatah. Translation. When the demigods are bereft of their chariots, when they forget how to use weapons, when they are fearful or attached to something other than fighting, or when their bows are broken and they have thus lost the ability to fight, your majesty does not kill them. All this is being spoken by Kamsa's ministers to Kamsa. And this is the day after each child was born, and Kamsa thought it was a baby girl, and that baby girl escaped from Kamsa's hand. She appeared as Durga, and Durga said, the actual killer is born somewhere else. Don't be cruel to your poor sister. So the next day, Kamsa called his ministers and told them what happened, what all happened. So the ministers are now thinking, what should we do? How can we protect Kamsa against the killer? So these are all the things they are suggesting. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are principles that govern even fighting. If an enemy has no chariot, is unmindful of the fighting art because of fear, or is unwilling to fight, he is not to be killed. Kamsa's ministers reminded Kamsa that despite his power, he was cognizant of the principles of fighting. And therefore, he had excused the demigods because of their incapability. Why are they saying all this? The real reason is given now. But the present emergency, the minister said, is not intended for such mercy or military etiquette. Now you should prepare to fight under any circumstances. Why? Because your life is in danger. Thus, they advised Kamsa to give up the traditional etiquette in fighting and chastise the enemy at any cost. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Now, something interesting about Krishna's pastimes is that Krishna's pastimes are the pastimes of the original personality of Godhead in the spiritual world. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. And Krishna has got his personal abode. So, what is he doing in the personal abode? He is always engaged in loving pastimes with his devotees. Eko Devo Nitya Leelanurakto. This is a statement of the Vedas. Supreme Lord is one. And what is he doing? Nitya Leelanurakto. He is constantly, always engaged in pastimes. Leela. So, Krishna's primary purpose of coming to this world is to deliver everyone by attracting them to his wonderful pastimes, which are going on always in the spiritual world. Now, in addition to that, Krishna also is appearing as Vishnu, the three Vishnus. This material creation begins with Mahavishnu. And then there is Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, who enters every universe. And then there is the maintainer Vishnu, the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. So these Vishnus have got specific purpose. Krishna himself expands personally and appears as the incarnations. Now, the first incarnation in this material world is Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu's incarnation is very special because Mahavishnu begins this material creation and he remains till the end of this manifested creation, till the end of the universe. He remains as Mahavishnu. But the amazing thing is, according to the eternal time scale, day and night. Daytime he has got his pastimes, nighttime he has got his pastimes. Always engaged in pastimes. And eternal time is not of the nature of this material time. Material time is kalosmi lokakshayakrut. 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, in the universal form, Arjuna is asking, who are you? And what is your mission? So Krishna says, I am Kala. Kala means destructive time. Lokakshaya. Shaya means to destroy. So Kala, time in the material world, is always destructive. And in the spiritual world, time is never destructive. Time is always simply enabling Krishna's varieties of pastimes. Varieties of pastimes. So, as soon as Krishna gets up, he has his pastimes of Mother Yashoda getting him ready to go for cow herding. Then, after that, he goes with the cowherd boyfriends for cow herding. Now, in the cow herding time, there are so many other pastimes that go on in the different forests in Vrindavan. And then, evening he returns home. So, this time is progressing in the spiritual world. Early morning, sunrise, early morning. Then there is little later in the day, then midday, then afternoon, then evening. Before sunset, he has to come back. And then after sunset, evening, Mother Yashoda actually nicely bathes him and feeds him and plays with him in the home, and then puts him to sleep. So all these varieties of pastimes are enabled by eternal time. Eternal time is different. Whereas in the material world, time is destructive. Kala. Destructive. So this destructive time is different and eternal time is different. Mahavishnu actually is existing in the eternal time. In the eternal time scale, what is happening in this material world? Half a breath of Mahavishnu is lying down as a pastime on one causal ocean, and he is simply going to sleep. Nidra, yoga nidra. It's not ordinary nidra, it's not ordinary sleep, it is yoga nidra. So in that yoga nidra, he's simply lying down and enjoying sleeping. When we go to sleep, we are tired. We go into a sleeping condition, which is a different state of consciousness. We are not aware of the externals, external surroundings. We forget our external body, our external situation, external surrounding, everything we forget. And we enter a dream state in which there is a dream world, a subtle world. And in the dream world, so many things happen. And then there is also a state of forgetfulness of even the dream world and the external world. That is the ignorant state of consciousness. And then after that, we wake up. We come back to the wakeful state. So we go through 3 states of consciousness or awareness: wakeful state, dreaming state, and ignorant state. Whereas Yoga Nidra, Mahavishnu, or even Krishna, when he goes to sleep at night, when Mother Yashoda puts him to sleep, he is not sleeping like us. He is enjoying his pastimes, of which one of the pastimes is going to sleep. So he is sleeping as a pastime. So even Mahavishnu is sleeping, lying down on the causal ocean as a pastime. So Mahavishnu, while sleeping, he'll be breathing. So he breathes out and he breathes in. So just half a breath, when he breathes out, so many universes come out of his skin holes. And those universes remain for the short duration of his breath, outgoing breath. Because after you breathe out, what do? You breathe in. Similarly, Mahavishnu also breathes in. When he breathes in, when he begins to breathe in, everything is destroyed. When he begins to breathe out, everything is created, all the universes. And when he begins to breathe in, everything is destroyed and everything enters his body. They come out of his body, all these universes, and they go back into his body. And this is perpetually going on because he's just lying there and he is breathing out and breathing in. He's enjoying sleeping. This is his pastime, Mahavishnu's pastime, Leela. But when he breathes out, the universes are created, they'll remain as long as he does not breathe in. So that duration, according to our time scale, half a breath, an outgoing breath, is the duration of Brahma. So Brahma lives for half a breath of Mahavishnu's time scale, eternal time scale. But in material calculation, that is the lifespan of Brahma, which compared to the time scale operating on the Earth planet is 311 trillion years. Means that duration of time, half a breath of Mahavishnu, is subdivided into so many types of divisions. Those are the different time scales that are operating on the different planets. So that time scale is described in the Bhagavatam. This destructive time has got a time scale. Atomic time to universal time. Atomic time to universal time. Why am I telling all this? Because Krishna's pastimes are essentially the pastimes he has come to display in the spiritual world. And those pastimes are not of the nature of destructive nature. They're all simply Krishna enjoying with his devotees. In the spiritual world, who are there? Krishna and his devotees, that's all. That's the spiritual world. And Krishna is always enjoying with his devotees. And devotees are engaged in serving Krishna lovingly, participating in his pastimes. What is the service they are doing? There is no service to be done like we have to do some service here. We got duties, we got responsibilities, we got to take care of the maintenance of our body. We have to feed, we have to bathe, we have to do so many duties. Krishna has no duties. Neither the devotees have any duties. So what are they doing, Krishna and his devotees? They are just engaged in loving pastimes. Eko Devo Nitya Leelanu Rakto. Not only Deva, the Supreme Lord, also his devotees. They are also doing the same thing. Therefore, there is no need of destructive time. Whereas here, this whole creation has got a purpose. That we are not meant to live here. We are meant to be given a chance to try to be independent of Krishna, try to enjoy independent of Krishna, try to imitate Krishna as the Lord. So many different funny ideas we have, foolish ideas we have, to forget Krishna, to be away from Krishna, to be independent of Krishna, to be envious of Krishna, to imitate Krishna, to try to take Krishna's position, etc., etc. To facilitate all that, Krishna creates this world. And after the living entities have been given a chance, when they realize, I cannot be independent, I cannot enjoy independently, I cannot be the Lord, I cannot uh, afford to forget Krishna. Krishna is my only maintainer, Krishna is my only well-wisher, Krishna is my only Lord, Krishna is my only everything. Then we have to go back to Godhead, where we belong. So Krishna is facilitating that by this creation. So if at all he comes, personally, it is for giving a glimpse of his abode, where we belong. And his abode has got 3 divisions: Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwaraka. 3 abodes he has got. In each of those abodes, he has got his specific pastimes. So those pastimes he displays here. When he comes, his abode also comes. So with him, Vrindavan Dham comes from the spiritual world, Mathura Dham comes from the spiritual world, and Dwarka Dham also comes from the spiritual world. And in those 3 dhams, Krishna has got specific pastimes. So he displays those pastimes. But Krishna also, he performs pastimes which are the pastimes of the different incarnations of Krishna in this material world. These incarnations in the material world are meant for maintenance of this material world. They're all the maintainer Vishnu's pastimes. Maintainer Vishnu's pastimes. Maintainer Vishnu's pastimes are 3 kinds. That Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadhunam. There are devotees in this material world also, not only in the spiritual world. In the material world, there are devotees. So, to protect the devotees, paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkritam, to kill all these demons or demoniac natured persons who are simply harassing unnecessarily the devotees. Without any reason, they simply want to give trouble to the devotees. They're always against devotees. Dushkritam. Dharma samsthapanarthaya. To re-establish the principles of religion, which are meant for the living entities to realize who they are, why they cannot be happy here, how it is foolish to be try to be independent, etc., etc., etc. So that dharma, at the beginning of the creation, the Supreme Lord, the first created being, Brahma, is instructed in dharma. He is instructed in all the subject matter that is necessary for the living entities to know who they are, what is this creation, what are the purposes of this creation, where do we belong, why we cannot be happy here, everything. That he instructs Brahma. And through Brahma, that knowledge is always passed on, generation after generation. Okay. But sometimes that knowledge becomes lost. Or the foolish living entities who are busy with sense gratification and under the influence of this time, they forget who they are, they forget what is the purpose of their life, they forget that they are always unsuccessful in trying to be independently happy. And to remind them and to re-establish the dharma which is also forgotten, he also re-establishes the principles of religion, dharma. This is the function of the maintainer Vishnu. This is not the function of Krishna. Dharma samsthapanartha. So, therefore, Krishna says, Sambhavami yuge yuge. Every yuga I appear for these 3 purposes. Maintainer Vishnu, he has to maintain all the yugas. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. Always, all the yugas he is maintainer. He has to maintain. So Krishna, when he comes, Prabhupada explains this. This is parampara understanding. Krishna does not come alone. He comes with his associates from the spiritual world. He also appears with all his expansions, who are expansions in the spiritual world and expansions in the material world. Expansions in the material world are the incarnation, and expansions in the spiritual world are the other forms of the Supreme Lord, beginning with Balaram, first expansion, and then Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, all of them appear when Krishna appears. All of them appear. So, these incarnations in the material world, expansions in the spiritual world, all of them appear with Krishna. And they also perform their pastimes. So, the pastimes of killing the demons, of re-establishing religious principles, of protecting the devotees who are harassed by the demons, all belong to the incarnations of Krishna. They don't belong to Krishna. Those functions and those activities don't belong to Krishna. So Krishna is concerned, he is just enjoying with the devotees either in Vrindavan or in Mathura or in Dwaraka. You read those also in the 10th canto. But you also read in the 10th canto the pastimes of Krishna killing the demons. Now, these pastimes of killing the demons are only in the material world. Why? In the spiritual world, there are no demons. The birth pastime is only in the material world. Because there is no birth in the spiritual world. Then Krishna growing up, that pastime is also in the material world only. Spiritual world, there is no growth. Everybody has their eternal spiritual form, which is eternally the same, youthful form. But surprisingly, only Krishna's form in the spiritual world is the Shyamasundara form, the original form. But that Shyamasundara form, which is about 16 years old, freshly blossoming youth, that form, the same person, the same Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, he reciprocates with his various devotees in different forms, in different moods, in different ways, exactly as the devotees want to relate with him, want to serve him, want to reciprocate with him. Exactly like that, Krishna expands himself into so many forms, both in the spiritual world and the material world. So, Krishna's various expansions and incarnations are simply Krishna only in different forms, in different moods, in different types of activities, simply for the sake of his devotees. Simply for the sake of his devotees. So, among these different types of devotees, some of the devotees are in the spiritual world and some devotees are in the material world. The devotees in the spiritual world are eternally enjoying serving Krishna in the specific form in which Krishna reciprocates with them according to their desire to serve him. So, he's got so many devotees in so many different moods of service, different types of devotees in the spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, he has got, as Krishna, he has got his 3 different abodes: Vrindavan Dham, Mathura Dham, and Dwarka Dham. Then, in other forms, Krishna in Vrindavan is a cowherd boy, and in Mathura he is a prince, and in Dwarka he is the king. These are his eternal forms in the spiritual world. Same thing he manifests here. And in the other planets, Vaikuntha planets, Krishnaloka, 3 divisions. But other Vaikuntha planets, there are so many varieties of forms because there are varieties of devotees. And exactly according to the nature of the devotees, he is present as Narayana, he is present as Rama, he is present as Lakshmana, he is present as Narsimha, he is present as so many different forms. And those pastimes are also going on. In the material world, his devotees are spread throughout the universe in different planets. And exactly according to their desire to serve him or ability to serve him, he incarnates. Now, when he incarnates as a fish, that's because there are devotees in the fish form. In the material world or in the spiritual world, the devotees reciprocate according to their form, according to their desire to serve him, according to their ability to serve him. In the spiritual world, same thing in the material world. So it's explained in the 1st canto, 3rd chapter in the Bhagavatam that the Supreme Lord appears in various species as incarnations. There's a verse in the 1st canto, 3rd chapter. Among the last few verses, one of the verses says, he incarnates in so many forms. Not 3rd chapter, I'm sorry, 2nd chapter. And then Suta Goswami, after explaining this principle, he incarnates in different forms simply to deliver the living entities. So he appears as in the fish form, in the tortoise form, in the boar form. So many forms he appears. But those are for delivering the living entities in this material world. But his form, his transcendental forms in the spiritual world, when they appear, they are not appearing for the sake of giving association according to the form. No. They are appearing for the sake of attracting the living entities by displaying their transcendental forms and transcendental activities in the spiritual world. So those forms are different. Just like when he appears as Narayana, that Narayana form is not for giving association to similar forms. So all these extraordinary forms, which are not visible at all, a similar form is not visible in this material world, are the forms of the Lord in the spiritual world. And the other forms, the fish form, tortoise form, all these are also transcendental forms. Whenever the Lord appears, he appears in spiritual form, but it resembles one of the forms of the living entity, material forms of the living entities in the material world. Now, among these forms, the human-like form, we say human-like form because none of them are material forms. But in the human-like form, Krishna's form, which is also human-like form, is not a form assumed by the Lord in the material world. It is his original form. Whereas the fish form half man, half lion form are all assumed forms. So if you go to the spiritual world, you will not find any fish form, the Lord in the fish form. You'll always find Lord in the four-handed form or two-handed form. So in the spiritual world, the Lord's form is always either two-handed or four-handed. In the material world, the Lord's form could be any type of form that we get material bodies, any of those type of forms. Could be any form. But our forms are material. This present form which we have got is material. Incarnations forms are all transcendental, spiritual. Narsimha, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, Vamana, all are transcendental forms. Now, among these transcendental incarnation forms, there is also the incarnation of the Lord as Rama. The Rama's form resembles a human form. But Rama's form resembling a human form is an assumed form of whom? Of Vasudeva in the spiritual world. The four-handed Vasudeva, transcendental form, eternal form in the spiritual world, has assumed a two-handed human-like form. Assumed a two-handed human-like form. Krishna doesn't assume a two-handed human-like form when he comes. There's a difference between Rama and Krishna. Incarnation of Rama and incarnation of Krishna. That is why Suta Goswami says, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Ete Chamsha Kala Pumsaha. And elaborate explanation is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of this verse. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains elaborately what does this verse mean. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead in the spiritual world who appears as he is in this material world. Whereas all the other incarnations, whether incarnations from the spiritual world or incarnations of Vishnu in the material world, maintainer Vishnu, all of them are assumed forms. But all of them are spiritual. All of them are transcendental. None of them are material. So I'll stop here. This much only I can explain. I have more things to say, but no time. More in the later class. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.